Well, good evening. Thanks for joining us again for another episode of the Model 3 Owners Club podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Page, and we want to apologize for some of the technical difficulties we had last week, but hey, we're back in style. We've got everything working now, so hopefully, knock on wood, things are good. So, without further ado here, I want to join in and bring in some of our guests tonight. Our first guest, as usual, is Mr. Eric Camacho from Florida. How are you doing, Eric?
Doing well. Good evening, everybody.
Great. Thanks for joining us again. And our other guest, as usual, is Mr. Michael Bodner from Florida again. How are you doing, Mike?
Also doing well. Thanks for having me, Trevor.
That's great. And joining us from Montreal is, well, where did he go? There he is. Ian. How are you doing, Ian?
I'm moving and very slowly. Now, hopefully you'll be able to hear me just fine. I apologize for the horrible image, but we're running a new system, and I only discovered this 15 minutes ago, so technologies and go back a few decades. So yes, I'm running this on something not far more than a 386, but hey, we're here. We're going to have fun, right?
No, it's okay. Well, at least we can hear you just fine. So we apologize for a little bit of a lag here on his part and stuff. And tonight we also have a special guest I want to bring in here. Her name is Anise Sharifi, and she's not too far from me. And she's a brand new Model 3 owner. Say hi to the crowd there, Anise.
Hello, everyone.
Anise is also part of, she's a member of the Tesla Model 3 Owners Club and the Ontario Tesla Owners Club, and she came out with her car there the other night, and we had a really great time going over the car. She's super excited. So anyhow, let's get into some of this stuff. The first thing I want to really get into is, of course, some of the salient points here on the shareholders meeting that happened a couple of nights ago. So there's some really juicy tidbits, and as usual, when it comes to Tesla stuff, the two best places to get real nuggets of information is either shareholders meeting, which only happens once a year, or some kind of financial call. So without getting into some of these things here, let's take a look here. So the first thing is Model 3 test drives are supposed to start sometime next month. Some of the stores will be getting cars, other ones maybe not. Let's see here. And I know that a lot of people have been waiting for test drives for like the longest time. And Tesla's position at this point is basically go find an owner. But it'll be nice to see finally some cars actually showing up. Now, I don't think all of the stores have cars yet. Is that true? Does anybody want to comment on that? Anyone?
Well, I can speak for my neck of the woods. Not all the stores have that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So we're waiting for the test drives to actually happen. So that'll be good. Let's see here. What else here? Autopilot free trials
Actually,
are.
Trevor,
Yeah.
Trevor, I'm going to interrupt you at that point. You forgot the juiciest and most important part. If I understand correctly, the test cars are going to be performance Model 3s.
Yeah, that's true. That's what he did say. However, Elon also said that all of the loaners for S and X would be fully loaded P100DLs, and that hasn't happened either. So
Okay, well, what's that?
just
don't harsh my buzz, man.
no, sorry, but reality is reality. So yes, it would be really great. It would sell the car really quite well. So yeah, I hope that happens.
Carry on.
Yeah. The other part here is autopilot free trials are coming back. Now, for some of you who don't know this, a couple of years ago in 2016, Tesla had a short run of trial periods where somebody could sign up for a trial. If you didn't buy autopilot with the car, you could do a trial in the car for 30 days. And for some reason, it just kind of disappeared. And now they're apparently going to bring it back. And that's good because I happen to know that a lot of people that I've spoken to here in this area that have purchased Model 3s, a lot of people didn't spring for the autopilot for whatever reason. I don't know if it's financial, they stretch themselves too far. I mean, it can happen. So I know a lot of people have been asking about autopilot. So it's good to see that we're going to have some kind of ability to be able to do free trials on that. So, yeah, that's pretty exciting for the people that need that. I'll say one extra thing about autopilot is I have a feeling some people may not even spring for it. Even some of the people were saying, I didn't buy it right now because I couldn't afford it, whatever, and then maybe I'll buy it later. And I just have this feeling because once they look at the price tag, they're just not going to want to spend that extra money. So I think part of that is why they're doing the trial thing. Is, get somebody to actually see, because I think in a lot of ways, if you don't know what you're missing, you don't know what you're missing. So, yeah.
I'm going to try it out.
Well, yeah, and that doesn't surprise me. You have experience with autopilot, right? You've driven John's Model X.
I have,
Okay.
but not for like a long distance or anything. So I'm excited to have it on my own car and just test it out myself
Right.
and experience it for a few days.
Okay. Well, that's...
Trev, I have a question on the subject, actually.
Go ahead.
Once they do this 1 month trial, do you still have to pay the after delivery price, or do you still get the upfront price like if you'd ordered it with the car?
My understanding is that you have to pay the after price penalty because it's not sold as part of the
That's
car.
what I would figure.
Well, that's
what I would
the thing. That's the incentive, right? That's the incentive to get you to buy it with the cars. They give you, well, not a discount, but it's just here's the price. And if you buy it after the fact, then you got to pay whatever penalty they impose on it. So we'll see.
I just want to. I think it would sort of boost the promotion if it's like not only will it give you a month free to try it, but if you grab it within the trial period, then we'll give you it at that price. Now, of course, that might annoy people who have paid for it afterwards. I mean, that's a fine line you got to walk there. But I just throwing it out there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Anissa, I got a question for you since you just got your Model 3. I have run into some people, and I ran into some people yesterday at Supercharger, and they said, at what point do we get charged for supercharging? Have you done any supercharging in your Model 3?
No.
No. Okay. All right. So we can't answer that question yet.
No, I have. It's just because my account actually hasn't been set up yet on
Okay. Understood.
my app. I have done it on the Sherway station, and it was charged.
Okay. Okay. Did you see a fee or not yet?
Yeah, I can see it on my car.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Good to know. All right.
Anissa, have you figured out some way to hack the system here?
No, well, there's some technicalities here. We're really not going to get into that quite yet. So, all right, let's just move on to the next point here. The other bit too, Model Y apparently is going to be revealed in March of 2019. So I guess Elon wasn't really fooling around when he did spit out, I think on a tweet storm a few days ago that they were going to do March 15th. And has anybody checked the date on that? I don't even know what day that is. So I was kind of hoping that was going to happen sometime like this summer or maybe in the fall. Mm. But because it'd give me an excuse to go back to San Francisco.
Nice.
But, oh well, it is what it is. So they did put out a bit of a teaser here. I'll bring up the image here so that everybody can see what I'm talking about. This was in the shareholder letter.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's kind of rough. And, I know some people out there were trying to do some Photoshop magic on it to try and get, a better idea of what this thing looks like. So I saw some people stretching out a Model 3. And, the problem with these Photoshop jobs is that they're hacks and they don't look good. And the final product always looks better. So take this with a grain of salt. Last year, they released another teaser image. I don't have it in front of me here. Of the Model Y, but look, it's a CUV. It's a little smaller SUV, so it's going to be a little taller, based on the Model 3 platform. What we don't know at this point yet whether they're actually going to stretch the platform, whatever, to accommodate this, because they did that on the Model X. They actually stretched the platform a little bit, so it'd be interesting to see. I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, I got to get a Model Y. Got to get a Model Y." Problem is, they don't have a factory to build this thing in, so temper your expectations, right? Does anybody else? Does any of you want a Model Y? Anybody would like to have a CUV?
My wife definitely wants one.
Yeah,
but she also wants your car, Trev. So we'll see what happens.
Go big or go home, right?
Probably what's going to happen.
All right.
Hey, Trev,
Yeah,
are
go
you
ahead.
sure we're live?
Well, we're recording audio in any case, so
Okay.
yeah.
Sorry.
Are people complaining
Getting
here?
some weird messages here that it's not on.
Yeah, you know what? It's just sometimes the stream just kicks out for whatever reason. You know what? In the future, we may just have to do something about this. I apologize for those listening here. If they're having difficulties with the video stream, it just YouTube sometimes just acts a little bit funny. Oh well, we'll just carry on. We will carry on. Let's see here. Elon also mentioned Supercharger V3 coming later this year. There was also some information on there. Now, previously, I think in one of his tweets, he said that there was a possibility that they were going to do 200 to 250 kilowatt, not much more than that. I guess they figured that at the end of the day, that's mostly what people really needed. So if that actually happens, we're going to see a bit of a boost in the charge speed on the cars. Hopefully it's backwards compatible to all the cars. We'll see. There was a time when the superchargers first came out, there were some people with... I mean, Tesla's gone through different revisions of their battery packs on the S and the X, and some people had earlier cars couldn't charge more than, I think, about 96 kilowatt or something like that. And since then, they've done different revisions. The larger battery packs, of course, can accept a higher charge. You know, when I had a loaner, a P100, I saw over 100 kilowatt charge speed on that. I've never seen more than about 96 on my 75, so it just kind of goes with the territory. I think the other little bit, too, that he said, what did he say? Oh, it would be zombie apocalypse. What was that, Mike?
He mentioned that it might be, or likely would be, combined with solar. So,
yeah, I think that was the comment. He said zombie apocalypse proof. So I think that kind of goes back to way back in the day when they first released it. That the idea was that they would be largely off-grid, solar-powered. So I think if anything, if the Kettleman supercharger is any indication, that would be kind of where they're probably going to go forward as more carport type things on a larger scale. So that's exciting. Let's see here. Oh, you know, I got to mention this. The white Roadster that they had out front. You guys saw this? This white Roadster?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
Oh, my gosh. These pictures, by the way, are courtesy of my friend Dennis Pasquale. He sent me these images. Oh, my. You know, when I first saw the Roadster in red, I was like, yeah, that's a really sexy looking car. And I hope to God that they switch to this red because it's, you know, if you look at the Mazdas, they have a beautiful red. Tesla's red is nice, but I find that if it's not in direct sunlight, it's a little dull looking. But this pearl white it just grabbed me, and I just like, oh, I just got to get this car now.
You have a matching set.
Oh, there's just something about Tesla's, design when they go with a stark white and they put black parts on the car. Just that ultra contrast between the white and black. I understand colors are very subjective. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's not for everybody. But when I saw this white, I was just like, you know what? I think I mentioned this before, right, Ian? I was just like, didn't we discuss this at one point? I said, if I don't get the Roadster, it's not the end of the world. I'd be like, oh, maybe I'd sell it. I think I've changed my mind.
I clearly you have. I mean, as soon as you saw the images of the white one, it's like, oh no, Trev's going a different direction here all of a sudden. And now, of course, you have your worldwide campaign here to get the referrals. So that originally Canada, then U.S., and now we've got people pushing you to take it to Europe. I think you're going to need some serious vacation time here, Trev.
Well, you know what? In all honesty, I'm not the first to propose going across country. Zach and Jesse mentioned it, and one of the other guys mentioned it too. I just thought I would just throw it out there, because one of the things about the referral program is that it's really nice to be able to get these referrals, but it doesn't happen without somebody else's involvement, right? Somebody's got to buy a card in order to get these referrals. So for me, it just makes sense to pay it forward. Like, if you're going to get this car as a thank you, show people. Take them for a ride. Do what you need to do. So that was my only impetus, really, was to be able to, kind of pay it forward and let people get an opportunity. And the thing about referrals is you actually see the names. Now, you don't have their contact info, but, hey, the Internet's the Internet. So at least you have some kind of way. And actually, some of the people that have actually used my referral code have private messaged me, and I have their emails, and I've talked to them on a regular basis. So it wouldn't be out of the possibility to be able to contact these people and give them a ride as a thank you. So that's the least I could do, right?
Yeah, it's an awesome idea. I'm fully behind it.
And speaking about the Roadster for just a moment, all the talk about the Model 3 being really like driving a spaceship, to me, the Roadster looks like an actual spaceship. You have that great contrast of the black and the white. So for anyone to see the car in person or have a chance to ride in the car, and especially in that, since we've seen renderings of the steering wheel, yeah, you're probably driving a land-based spaceship, which is really cool.
Do you guys really think that steering wheel is going to make it to market?
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't have a picture of the steering wheel, unfortunately, but it looks like one of them Knight Rider things from the 80s, where it's just like a steering yoke.
I'm also pretty sure the car is going to have side mirrors.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Unless legislation changes.
I don't know. Audi recently released some images of, was it the e-tron or like one of the upcoming vehicles, and they claim no, they're going to have cameras on it. So I don't know.
In Europe, yes, they can probably have some laws over in Europe, but in North America, there's no chance of that happening without the laws changing.
Yeah, I mean, no, everyone's been stonewalled since day one, so I don't think they're relaxing it here. But
well, don't forget when they showed the Tesla Semi at the event, the silver one didn't have mirrors on it; it had cameras. Now they're driving it around; they had to put mirrors on it. Right. So we'll see, but hey, I truly believe if Tesla could get rid of the mirrors, they would do it in a nanosecond because it affects range, right?
That's right.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to get rid of mirrors. Okay, next little bit. We're just kind of moving along here. Chinese Gigafactory is going to be announced in maybe about a month. We could kind of see this from a long ways coming down the road. It makes total sense for China to build something over there to get around some of the import duties, of course, keep the cost down, and so on and so forth. It doesn't make any more sense to build cars in North America to ship them to China any more than shipping cars from China to North America on Tesla's behalf. So I know there's been a lot of discussion on the internet that, this is where they're going to make the Model Y. Maybe not. They got a lot of land out in Nevada that's kind of being unused. So I think there's some opportunities there for them to, get some costs down and stuff. So
I thought it was interesting. Sorry. I thought it was interesting. They mentioned, Elon said probably Europe announcement before the end of the year as well.
Yeah, that's always a possibility because Europe's another area that have large import duties, and most of the manufacturers bring cars in from their respective facilities. In some ways, like in Europe, I think, it's India. So I have a video in India where Audi has a final assembly plant, much like Tesla does in Tilburg in the Netherlands, where they build. Well, they do final assembly on the cars. Really, the bodies are shipped there, the drivetrains, the battery packs, and they just do final assembly, and that satisfies the import laws over there. So. It wouldn't surprise me that they would do something like that. But Europe does need an actual factory in order to get the cost down. So, speaking of the Gigafactory, Elon did mention that the Gigafactory in Nevada would take approximately 4 to 5 years to complete. So it just seems that this timescale has been extended somewhat because if we remember back in I think it was 2014 when they started building the factory, that they said that it was supposed to be completed by 2020. So. Looks like that's being expanded. They did move the parking lot to the north side, so that leads me to believe that they're making some room now so they can actually start expansion of the factory. And again, I don't have any information on this, but I do believe that there's a good chance that they may end up sticking some kind of factory there, at least on a temporary basis, for whatever other cars. The Roadster and the Tesla Semi. With the numbers that they're talking about, we may not see a purpose-built factory for those things. Those are kind of something they could build in another facility close to Fremont. They have a facility in Fremont where they build some of the prototypes. They're not always done in the factory. So we'll see. Okay, so that was quick recap of what's going on at the shareholders meeting. So tonight we want to kind of recap some of the stuff that we missed last week because of some of our technical difficulties. So one of the items on here was the Model 3 hypermiling record set by Eric Strait and Sean Mitchell. They did 606.2 miles over the course of about 32 hours on a closed loop, and it looks like it was like a little industrial area on flat land. And unfortunately, they had a little bit of a problem at the end when they tried to supercharge the car. I'll just bring up an image here for people to see. I apologize for those of you on the podcast that can't see this, but you can always watch on our YouTube channel here after the fact, that they had a battery problem and they couldn't supercharge. And everybody was speculating, did it break or whatever the heck the problem is. So I reached out to Eric because we're friends on YouTube and so on and so forth. And he basically said, oh yeah, it was the typical 12-volt battery had died in the car. And without the 12-volt battery working, it can't open the contactors on the main battery. So that was the real the problem at the end of the day. So they just Tesla replaced the 12-volt battery and all is well. Woohoo!
Trev, do we know if the 12-volt battery was also an issue as to why they were only able to use 66 kilowatt hours?
That's a good question. I didn't get into that. I don't know what's going on there because we do know the battery pack. On the high end of the scale is actually, now the usable amount is a certain amount, but the actual size of the battery pack is somewhere in the vicinity of 80 kilowatt hours. We generally refer to it as 75 because of buffers and so on and so forth. But the actual physical amount has been measured to be about 80 kilowatt hours. So that's a good question. I should reach out to him and just see what he has to say about that.
Because if it did, there might be another 50 miles of range there if someone else wants to try it.
Yeah. What were you saying, Ian?
Yeah, no, what I was going to say is someone brought up the point that, the car had been running for something, was it 24 or 26 hours? It was like a long period of time. And you'd have other things using current, like normally you don't factor that in, all these other parasitic draws or whatever, and they would have, consumed over the period of more than a day a sizable portion, maybe 5 or 10% of the capacity. But I would have figured somehow the car is still monitoring that. I figured it would look at the total draw of absolutely everything and calculates the total power consumption. But somebody was pitching the idea that there are things that might not display on the consumed power amount, and because it's over such a huge period of time, it would factor in. It would actually lower your, usable road capacity, mileage capacity, if you will.
Right.
I'm throwing that out there. Again, I have nothing to back that up, but it just was an idea. As someone's theory, I don't know if it holds water or not. We'd need one of the serious Tesla geeks to verify if that's true.
That's a good point. Well, let's see here. Some other discussions. Let's go down the list here. That really serious Model 3 accident on the highway in California. Do I have the pictures of that? Let me see if I have the pictures of that. I think it just really is a testament to how strong this car really is. I don't seem to have pictures here. Maybe I can just call it up real quick. Just give me a second. You guys keep talking here. I'm going to figure it out.
Now, if memory serves, this is the accident where it was a family man. He was hit from behind and then had hit 2 barricades on the side of the highway.
That's right. Yep, that's the one. And I'm trying to find it here.
Yeah, and it sounds like the car that rear-ended them was going considerably faster, because when you see the impact damage to the back of the car, wow.
Yeah.
And what's interesting to note is that we still don't have all the crash test results that are being done by the various agencies that do crash tests. And so when we do hear of these accidents, which again are not going to be great in number because there's only so many Model 3s that are on the road. But again, it's really just proving yet again Tesla's track record for making safety a paramount feature of the car.
Oh, guaranteed. Absolutely. Here's a picture. I finally found it.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, you can definitely see, the crumple zone. The whole rear end of the car is a crumple zone. So is the front, although the front looks like it didn't sustain quite as much damage. But you can see, the different airbags, knee airbags, of course. That was a lot of people on the internet were saying, are those knee airbags? Well, yeah, of course they are. Most cars have knee airbags these days. Rear glass is not shattered. The doors opened up.
The cabin looks fairly intact.
Yeah, and, look, no battery fire.
Oh, look, the doors just opened right. Oh, nice one, Trev. Nice.
Well, I had to mention that because obviously the media didn't see any kind of need to be able to, if it doesn't happen, it's like, well, it doesn't happen. But if it does happen, it's like, oh my gosh. So, yeah. Makes me feel good that we're dealing with a very safe car, right?
No kidding.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, let's move on here. This is not Model 3 related, but I'll throw it in here a little bit. The Model S and the X got an interior refresh. Now, when I talk about an interior refresh, I'm talking about colors and finishes, not a full revamp. So those of you who may or may not seen this is a picture of a, I don't know if it's an S or an X. It's hard to tell these days because the interiors are almost identical. But what they've done here, and what we're looking at here is the cream interior, which is the beige. It's not white. It's not the old beige. It's kind of halfway in between. And they've changed the finish on the wood decor. And this particular combination, by the way, I should mention these combinations are not user selectable like you used to. So they're preset combinations. So what they've done here is they've gone through what looks like to be a white oak finish. And they've largely eliminated the aluminum trim. Right? They've gone to what looks to be what they call carbon. It's a dark, almost black. I like it. I like the contrast. I haven't seen it in person, but this kind of caught my attention. I did a review. I had a P100D loaner, and it had the new interior, the cream finish. And while the seats were very nice and the color was nice, I'll talk about the color here in a second. But one thing that bothered me was the fact that the seats were very, very smooth, like to the point of being slippery. So if anybody's, and I'm comparing it to mine because I have the white interior. The white has like a grippy finish to it. It's a rougher finish, and if you had them side by side, you would actually see what I mean. So if anybody's actually considering this finish, I would highly recommend that you actually spend a little bit of time in the showrooms and actually compare them and actually sit in them. I like the cream. I wouldn't choose it because the carpets are also cream, at least in the Model S. I think the Model S retains the black carpets. So I think that we get dirty rather quickly. But the fact that I was slipping around in the seats turned me right off. I didn't like it. Plus, it doesn't have a black headliner. So, but that's just me. I mean, colors are subjective, right? So, yeah. Let's see here. The other little tidbit here. Model 3 is approaching 500 units per day. So we're getting pretty close. I mean, that's 4,000 units a week. So Elon reiterated again, he feels very confident in getting to 5,000 cars per week by the end of the month. So that bodes well for production. And of course, that'll start tying in, of course, with more options being available, of course, naming Performance Model 3 coming on board and the potential for all-wheel drive. I know a lot of people ask me lately if the Performance and the all-wheel drive has become available to order in Canada yet. I know it is in the U.S., and the answer is no. But Elon did say, and I had asked Elon last week on a tweet to see if when it was going to open, and he replied that that they were going to be opening very soon, within the next week or so. So it's pretty encouraging. Ian, have you made any decisions yet? Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
there's what I want, and there's what I can afford. And at some point in tonight's broadcast, if we have a moment to throw up that spreadsheet that no one has yet to see, and unfortunately I get the impression none of our viewers still can see, but I'm hoping if they go back to the recording later on.
Yeah, absolutely.
There it is. So there's the story. So if you can let me monologue here for a moment, let me explain what we're looking at, and then I will tell you the sad story of how I'm not feeling optimistic at this point about my personal ability to step up to the performance car, but it's certainly not for lack of wanting to. So yeah, I did a little study on this. It's very impromptu, and what I thought was, let's look at some of the cars that people might consider in the same league. And of course, the number one thing that most people consider when they talk about Tesla and performance is like, what's the 0 to 60? Like, how fast does this thing pin me in the cheeks? How fast does my cell phone disappear into this back seat? This is how these cars are judged. So number one, I put down 0 to 60. What do we have in the mid 3-second bracket that's kind of competitive with it? So I came up with a list of course, the Performance 3, the Audi TT RS Coupe, which is a hair quicker, the BMW M3, which is the car that it's being benchmarked against the track. Elon's making a lot of noise about it being quicker on the track than the M3. That's really holy grail territory for a lot of enthusiasts. The Camaro ZL1, which is another lightning fast car in a straight line and also on the track, and then the Audi RS3. And if you look at the pricing situation in the US, if we look at the MSRP column, they range anywhere from 55 to 78, with the M3 being sort of middle of the pack at 65. And that's without options. And, I'm doing a pretty cruel test here because the Model 3 Performance base price is a very well-equipped car. The other ones are quite well-equipped, but I mean, we all know with the other manufacturers, you start ticking the option boxes, they're going to go well into the 70s without any problem at all. So right off the bat, without any credits in the US, I think the Performance Model 3 is a pretty damn good deal. I mean, you start factoring in the fact you're not paying for gas anymore. The supercharging cost even on a trip is a fraction of what the gas would cost you when you're out of town. The maintenance is going to be way less because you're basically looking at fluid changes every few years or something. So, you're looking at U.S. pricing of this car, I think it's right where it needs to be. Tack on the tax credit while it's still available, and bargain's a strong word, but I would say it fights very well. The only one that's a real bargain compared to it in the US is the RS3. And let's face it, on the track, and I'm a big time Audi guy, I have no problem believing the Model 3 Performance car would annihilate an RS3 on the track. So, pound for pound, dollar for dollar, I think it's close to its fighting weight in the US. However, let's go look at the Canadian column. So over to the right, I've put in what I call the Canadian plus factor column. And this is where things get a bit grim. As we talked about, I think on show number 2, when we were trying to illustrate this, there's a lot of playing around with currencies when other manufacturers, both American and European and even the Asians, when they come into the Canadian market, they kind of hedge their bets by buying futures, playing around, spreading margin across different models. They do all sorts of things. So what you see happening is like Audi and Chevrolet are coming in at around 13% over what the comparative price is dollar for dollar in the US. So we get a great deal on these cars. Even the M3 comes in at about 1.2 in Canadian dollars over the US dollar. That's kind of typical of most of the cars up here. So you could say, well, that's a bit of a strange thing and we're benefiting from it. Tesla, however, pretty much brings them in one for one. So if the dollar is at $1.30, that's pretty much what we're going to get. So what I did is I took the US MSRP and I factored it up by 1.3. That's about what we're paying on the current first production build
Correct.
of Model 3. I think that's going to hold pretty much to the penny for the performance Model 3. So that gives us an MSRP of $101,000. Not only is it considerably steeper compared to the other cars, you're talking, about a 30-35% premium over these other cars that it competes with. But the worst problem is for all of us in BC, Ontario, and Quebec, it breaks the price limit. All three of those provinces have a $75,000 maximum price ceiling in order to qualify for the full rebate. And that makes a huge difference. I mean, particularly in Ontario, you're losing a $14,000 credit, which would bring it way in line. So here's what I've done. I've started my own little campaign.
I saw that.
And all of the good people at Tesla. Yes, I've been at them relentlessly. I'm not being heard, but that's okay. We must continue our work like missionaries. And what I'm hoping is they can somehow see fit to make Model 3 Performance in Canada an option package. And believe me, there's no reason on earth they can't do this. There's a whole litany of OEMs who've come before them who name their models differently here. It's the RS in the US. Here it's the Limited, Ultra, whatever. It can be an option pack rather than a full-blown separate model. Everybody plays the game. There's a bunch of different ways you could market the car here. Of course, it would require playing around with the configurator, and I don't know if they want to keep that standard across North America or not. But if they can see fit to do that, if you add it as an option pack, now the car qualifies for the rebate. If you go look at what I've done, this brings the difference down from around 44% over to, depending on the province we're looking at, anywhere between 20 and 30%. It brings it much closer into the game for us. And I'm really hoping somehow they can figure out a way to do that, because this would still be an enormous stretch for me, but it's not inconceivable. But I mean, if we're talking, if the car comes up here at full retail and I want autopilot, it's 108 plus tax. We're looking at $124,000. That's going to be a real hard sell on the budget committee in this house. Let me tell you right now.
The price we pay for performance.
Yeah.
Well, if it's any consolation, if you look at a Model S, P100D with Ludicrous, I mean, you're very close to 200 grand up here. So, if you want performance, it's a lot of money. It just is what it is. But
and I get that. But here's the thing. I'm going to come back, and I'm trying to be critical here. I'm trying to take off my fanboy hat, and I'm trying to put on my economist hat and say, look,
we don't want fanboys here.
If you buy a P100D, even at $200,000 Canadian, you're king of the road. There's nothing that's going to touch you. I mean, cars that are even approaching that level of performance are way over $250,000 and up. I mean, you're in hypercar territory.
Of course. You
pretty much own it. The Model 3 is fighting in a little bit more competitive territory. Like I said, in Canada, you can pick up the RS3 here for 63,000 Canadian. I mean, for a car that's, door to door with you, 0 to 60. So, I mean, yeah, it's not going to be as good in all the other respects. No question, the Model 3 Performance is going to be in a league of its own in terms of the total experience of what it delivers. And it will be cheaper to maintain and cheaper to fuel, if we can use that word. But still, going from something that's 60,000 to something that's 102. So please, Tesla, please look at this Performance 3 as a package deal. We will, as a country, be forever in your debt if you were to consider such a thing.
Well, it's not out of it's not out of character for them to do that. They have played with the configurations in the past for, I think was it the German market. So we'll have to wait and see. I don't really think they're going to really do much for us. I mean, they're doing us a very big solid right now to try and get as many Model 3s delivered before the Ontario election, which, by the way, is today. So later on, we'll get to see whether we actually survive a nuclear holocaust or not. But it is what it is. I did my civic duty today. I did vote. So.
I did too.
Good.
Oh, good. Thank you, Anise. Well, you know what?
I love how North Americans in 2018 are like, we're trying to survive anarchy. We're trying to survive the apocalypse. And all we're talking about is like whether or not a person's got enough intellect to not push the wrong button.
Yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
It's almost like anybody watching The Handmaid's Tale on TV. I mean, we're just a hop, skip, and a jump for a utopian, or not a utopian, but a very dystopian society if we're not careful.
That show is way too close to home at the moment.
Oh.
I mean, this was very bad timing. I have nightmares about that show.
That's really scary.
Who knew that, though, on Netflix, that House of Cards actually might prove to be at least a better example of a presidency than the one we currently have.
It's a case of
So there's
art
that.
imitating life, or life imitating art, or whatever that saying is.
Yeah.
Anyhow, on that note, I want to take a little break here because we actually have a sponsor. The wonderful folks. We have the wonderful folks at Fine Labs. And did you know that recent changes in environmental laws, most modern cars' factory paints are thinner, softer, and more fragile than ever before? This is great for the world we all love and share, but not so great for our brand new car showroom shine. And Teslas are no exception to this rule, and they're extremely susceptible to UV damage, fading, swirl marks, bird droppings, acid rain marks, and other environmental contaminants. But don't worry, FineLab has the answer. Our line of ceramic coatings were engineered to protect your Tesla's paint, leather, carpet, plastic, and wheels, effectively blocking all those UV rays and environmental factors before they ever get in and ruin your brand new baby. FineLab offers a complete line of car care products and ceramic coatings for both the DIYer and the professional detailer. Did we mention we also have the world's first self-healing coating? Check us out at www.finelab, that's spelled FEYNLAB.com, to see the science behind the self-healing. Check out our product catalog and click on Contact Us for a free quote from a certified installer in the area. FineLab and Tesla, we were meant for each other. So big thanks to the folks at FineLab. I like their product. I use it on my Model X, and boy, does it ever make washing the car so much easier. I love washing my car, but this is just even better. So great big thanks to the folks at FineLab for being a great sponsor. So check out their product. I really like it. So having said that, let's jump in. Last week, we had some technical difficulties, and today we're also having some technical difficulties, but this time it's not the sound, it's also the video stream, so I still got to sort that stuff out, and I really apologize.
Ian's computer.
Yeah, you know what? On the positive side, the audio streams are going out. They're even available in the Tesla, and I've listened to a couple episodes just to make sure everything's good, and it sounds good, so I'm very happy about that. So we have some leftover questions from last week, so we want to get in there. And the first one I want to bring up here is for Anise. So we're going to get Anise in here, and our good friend Jay. Let's get Anise up here on the screen there. Come on, my software is acting a bit funny. There you go, Anise. So Jay Pace says he has a question for Anise. Now that you've owned the Model 3 for almost a week, well, it's been 2 now. What are your biggest surprises you've had with the car?
Surprises.
Take that as you will. Found anything interesting? Stuff you maybe didn't expect?
I mean, there's so much. I didn't really know what to expect, but yeah, there's been so many things that have fully surprised me. So like the one pedal driving has been like the biggest thing that I've had to adjust to. Even though I've had the car for 2 weeks now, I still feel like I'm adjusting to that. The screen, like the main screen, hasn't surprised me, but it does take some adjusting to, I guess, still. Having to just, manage everything on one screen. Slacker, I like absolutely love. Maybe that's a big surprise. Like I didn't think I could do so much with it. I can actually listen to Iranian music on that. I have like so many like audiobooks and like things that I usually would have on my phone. Now it's all like on the car already. So that's been very surprising actually.
Are you
Yeah,
using,
there's like just so many like cute little things that like I still find on the car. Like every time I'm on the road, I feel like I'm like discovering something new. Yeah.
are you using the built-in Slacker account that comes with the car, or did you pay for an upgrade for the premium version, or are you just using whatever comes with the car?
Just
free?
whatever it came with.
I see. Okay, I was debating whether to actually to spring for the paid upgrade. I mean, most of my music lives on my phone, and that's what I stream. In all honesty, most of the stuff I listen to in my car are podcasts or audiobooks. I don't listen to all that much music. If they took away the FM radio, I could care less personally, but that's just me.
But
All
there's
right.
so much available on there. Like I don't even know why you would need the upgrade. There are so many like books and those like talk channels and so many different genres. Like there's so much on there. I feel like I'm constantly scrolling and like listening to something different and adding to my favorites and creating playlists, and it's just been so much fun.
You know what? The thing that I found with that Slacker system is that I find myself listening when the times I do listen to music to something that I wouldn't normally listen to music. Like my musical tastes run from like 1976 to about 1989, and that's it.
That's all
I love
on
the
there.
honesty
You
in
can
that.
listen to like 80s music. There's like 90s music on there, and like I've got like my favorite artists like all like selected as like my favorites now. And like depending on the mood that I'm in, if it's at night, I want to listen to chill music. If it's during the day, I want to listen to this. Like that's been like just so much fun. So I'm gonna actually cancel my Apple account because I don't really need it anymore.
Oh, really? Well, that's kind
Yeah.
of cool. Well, my understanding with the Slacker is that paying for a premium upgrade gives you the ability to edit your playlist on the website. But the other one, too, is there's a limitation. I don't know if you found this yet, but when you listen to a song, you can only listen it to once, I think, in a 24-hour period. And you can't also listen to whole albums all at once. So
Right. Yes, you
So
can't
there's-
listen to the whole album. I have found that. Yes.
So there are times when I like, I want to listen to that whole album, but I guess you can't. So I don't know. It's just there's only so much money to go around. So do I pay for that plus Netflix, or do I give one up? I can't give up Netflix. I just can't.
Who can give up Netflix?
Anyhow, let's move on. Second question. This one comes from Daniel G. Hi, Dan. It's another question for Nisei. He says, what's the most difficult adjustment you've had to make to the car as a very recent new owner?
So yeah, I kind of talked about that. One of the things that has taken me the longest to adjust to is actually finding the right seat placement in the car. So I am fairly short, and so previously I was in the Q3, which is a bit raised off the ground. So just my viewpoint was different. So now in this car, it's a sedan, and the back is raised and the window slopes, like the rear windshield slopes. So it took me like some time to get my seat right. I've got it right now, I think, so I can actually see behind me, and like all the blind spots around the car, and yeah, that's taken me the longest. But I think it's just because I went from a crossover to a sedan.
Right, your formal Audi user, right? You had what did you have, a Q3? Was it a Q3? Yeah.
Q3, yeah. So it was raised a little bit more than this one. I feel like I'm kind of on the ground, but then like just the way the car is positioned, like just the rear, I find like the bum is raised, but then the rear windshield slope. So I don't know. It took me some time to get used to it.
Have you, just out of curiosity, have you used the Easy Entry feature? You know what that is?
No.
Okay. Easy Entry is another driver profile that you can select, and you can set your mirrors and your windshield or your steering wheel and your seat positions, and you can select it as a secondary profile attached to your primary profile, so that the moment you unbuckle, it chooses that selection. So in my car, what I have is this. As soon as I unbuckle, the steering wheel moves up and the seat moves up a little bit, so that I can get or move back, whatever the case is. So that it just allows you to get in and out of the car a little bit. So it's particularly useful for people that are a little taller, bigger stature and stuff. So that's a neat feature you look for. But yeah, hey, you don't have it. Oh, by the way, remind me the next time I see you, I'll show you how to properly set up your mirrors. Right, Mike?
Absolutely.
There's a right way and a wrong way. I'm actually going to do a video pretty soon on showing people how to actually set up their mirrors according to the Society of Automotive Engineers. There's a right way to do it and a wrong way. And if you do it this way, it largely eliminates all your blind spots. So look for that soon. Got some new camera gear. So we're going to make some nice videos here soon. All right, let's move on the list here. We've got some other questions here. I had a list of them. Oh, some of them matter because some of them maybe not. Darren asks, hi there, just want to ask, for Ontario 3 owners, did you get your rebate at purchase or at delivery? I'm waiting for all-wheel drive and fear that my 3-year dream is a week from dying from the election this week. So the answer to that is no. Tesla does not, unlike some other manufacturers, they don't deduct the rebate from the price of the car. You have to pay full price. So it's full price plus tax. You fill in your paperwork, you send it into the government, and then you get in the case of the Model 3, a $14,000 rebate check, which is tax-free. You can do as you will with it. Pay down your car, take a vacation, whatever you like. So other manufacturers, you may have heard, will deduct the rebate from the price of the car. Tesla doesn't do that on account, I believe, of how they count the deliveries of the cars. So they want to be paid in full. It's kind of like a lease. They're not interested in the leases because that's a financial exposure for them. So they don't want to be caught holding on to it. Well, the other thing too is, of course, they've been doing hundreds and hundreds of deliveries over the last few weeks, a couple of weeks now. They probably got in excess of 2,000 of these cars on the road now in Ontario. So that's, we're going to have a little bit of a backlog again with the rebate situation. So they don't want to be left holding the bag on that. So I think that's your answer. Now, as far as all-wheel drive, I think I mentioned it just a little earlier. It hasn't opened for us again. It hasn't opened up in the configure. Wow, why am I so tongue-tied tonight? I don't get it. Anyhow, so the all-wheel drive in the performance car has, has not, wow, it's really going. Hasn't opened up for us yet. So, the thing is, depending on how things go, the other thing I have to mention is that with an election, when somebody comes in, there's no magic button that they can press the moment that they declared a winner or whatever to cancel a bunch of programs and stuff. These things sometimes take time. So I think, at least for the foreseeable little future, next few weeks or a few months, depending on how things go, that if you place an order for a car, you'll be safe. We're just hoping that this configuration for all-wheel drive and performance car comes online as soon as possible so people can take advantage of it. Unfortunately, there's no sunset clause, if you will, as far as when that happens. The only sunset clause we have in the case right now, if you order an S or Next prior to March 9th, you still get your rebate, but you have to take delivery before, I think it's September 7th. So anyways, Model 3 is a different situation, so we'll just leave it there. Okay, let's move on here. Another gentleman here by the name of Puneet Nath, he says, when's your estimate for white interiors for non-performance regular rear-wheel drive long-range Model 3s? My gosh, okay. Have no idea. Anybody want to chime in on this? It's basically a performance thing at the moment, right? If everybody wants a performance car, well, you get the option of white or black. Otherwise, you're just going to have to wait a little while.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much.
Like everybody else.
Yes, like everybody else. I've seen all the Model 3s and all the colors. I love them all. I did see a blue one. Blue one didn't make my list all that much, but I think a blue with the white interior, holy mackerel, that would look really sharp.
That was my first choice, I should say. It wasn't an option.
Yeah. You got the white, so you're happy.
Which I love.
Yes, I know, I agree. I agree with you 100%. Okay, let's move on here. Last question, and then maybe we can call it a night here. This question comes from James Boos. He says, what documents and papers are needed when you arrive for delivery? Can you give a detailed walkthrough on what to expect? Well, again, this is probably somebody from Ontario. Sorry, folks, but it's like buying any other car. You got to show up with proof of insurance. You got to have your driver's license. Your paperwork has to be complete. Of course, Tesla will tell you how much to bring. You got to bring a void check. If you're financing, have your check or your bank draft from the bank made out to the proper Tesla name, whatever the case may be. Just, cross your T's and dot your I's as best you can. I mean, Tesla will, your delivery specialist will basically call you and tell you what to bring. We've had some discrepancies here. But it's not a common thing. It's just the odd time and stuff. So those are basically, what's really going to happen on the paperwork front. Now, I'll just give everybody a little bit of an update here. The last couple of weeks of deliveries in Ontario, the first week especially was crazy nuts. We had some difficulties. Now I say we. I'm not talking about Tesla. I'm just talking about overall because these are observations that I made. The Ministry of Transport Ontario, which is the authority that handles with registrations and plates, were not prepared. Even though my understanding is Tesla told them what they were going to do, but they were not prepared. So the plates weren't delivered on time. The paperwork is sometimes incorrect. So some people were experiencing some rather long delays on getting their cars. Some people were waiting several hours in some cases, and everybody at Tesla was very apologetic. They're very nice and so on and so forth, but it wasn't really their fault. Now, that mad rush is over with now. I've just been to 2 different deliveries with friends who requested my assistance to go and inspect the cars, and I'll gladly do that, but I don't want to overstay my welcome with Tesla. And they were swimmingly smooth on that case. In most cases, you can be in and out of there in 45 minutes, an hour tops. In most cases, it was mostly half an hour. They did have a little area in the corner where they had some people up from California doing presentations, just a little orientation for 20-odd people at a time. And so that went well. And after that, you go do your paperwork and off you go. And they had food and coffee and stuff. So, yeah. So if you're looking at a delivery, it's largely smoothed out. So the horror stories you may hear online, those are gone. It's not really an issue anymore. Okay. So any parting thoughts from anybody before we sign off for the evening?
So I have 2 thoughts.
Go ahead, Eric.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say, so 2 things. One, about the delivery. Here in the U.S., the delivery process is very simple, and my delivery specialist were able to keep in tabs with me throughout the entire process. So once the order was submitted, they make it very clear, just go into my Tesla, you can upload your documents there. Day of delivery, when I went to pick up the car, they pretty much had everything they needed. I mean, I was able to sign a few papers, and I was in and out of the room within like 4 or 5 minutes. So as long as you have everything you're being asked to provide, it's honestly very smooth. And again, that's here in the U.S. I'm sure it's different in Canada. But for us, it was pretty quick. And the other thing is a lot of the stuff that we're going through now, these sort of bumps and bruises with deliveries and orders and the configurator and everything else, this is the first time Tesla's doing a mass market car. Oh, yeah. So a lot of the stuff that we're going through now will eventually be ironed out in short order. And as we continue with deliveries in the 3, as we continue with the production of the Y in the years to come, it's just going to become more fluid, much more efficient. And you're going to see a lot of these problems ironed out very, very soon, if there are any.
Yeah, I think most of the people that are taking delivery now are experiencing a better experience than what they had, say, a week ago. I was monitoring some of the Facebook pages on the Canadian side of things, and there were a lot of very upset people. This is not the experience I was expecting. I get it. It's largely not their fault, but yeah. So a lot of stuff. If you're watching and stuff, if you haven't taken delivery car, those horror stories are over with. Anyhow, so anything else before we part?
Yeah, I've got one thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I'm sure, Trevor, you probably get a lot of questions about the U.S. federal tax credit.
Yes, let's talk about that.
My own pure speculation, and I don't want to put us down the rabbit hole with a couple minutes left, but production ramping up to about 5,000 units a week toward the end of this month, which happens to be the end of the quarter. I can't help but think they're going to cross the threshold right around first week in July, and then just knock it out of the park with deliveries in the last 2 quarters of the year at the full credit still for the U.S. consumers.
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. I mean, the fact that they're trying to push for, production as fast as possible before a quarter starts or ends, whichever way you look at it, is an indication that they're trying very hard to staunch deliveries as long as they possibly can so that everybody gets this federal tax credit. So unfortunately, for people that are going to be waiting a little longer for potentially, for the standard drive and stuff, who knows what's going to happen with that. But if they can keep their production climbing and going, there's a good chance you'll at least get a half a credit or a quarter credit when the time comes. So it's always good. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's sign off for this evening. Let's start with you, Mike. Where can people find you on the internet?
All right, you can find me on Twitter at Michael R. Bodner. You could also find me on YouTube. Just started my own channel.
I've been watching your videos. Good job.
Thank you. I've got 50 subscribers now, so I'm catching up to Trev pretty quickly here. But no, I'm trying to do some nice how-to videos and show some fun things. And then last but not least, on Trev's forum, Model 3 Owners Club, at SOFA Model 3.
Excellent. Thanks for that. How about you, Eric? Where can people find you on the interwebs?
You can find me on Twitter at hashtag I am awesome and so are you. No, you can find me. You can find me on Twitter at the handle ECFix. That's just ECFIX. I am also on Facebook. You can also find me there. I am not on the forum as often because there's life.
Yeah. Okay. Good. And how about you, Ian? Where can people find you on the internet if they want to talk to you?
All right. Easiest is on Twitter. My full name, all one word, at Ian Pavelko. You can also find me on Model 3 Owners Club. I try to at least log on once or twice a day. The handle's Mad Hungarian, Mad Space Hungarian. And also, when you go to the Twitter, there's a pinned tweet for my Evolve shirt program, which I will forever be plugging. So
There is a link in the video description if you want to find his link to his shirts.
Yeah, at the end, exactly. If you go on the YouTube, you'll find the link for that too. And I'd have to give a huge shout out to everybody, Andrew Dalliman and everybody else who's been showing up to delivery events wearing the Evolve shirt. Like you've pushed the sales through the roof, and I'm so proud of you all. I'm so happy. I'm so thankful because you're generating a lot of money for some good electric vehicle organizations here, because all the money does go to EV Works. So
That's
many
awesome.
thanks to all of you for that.
And I love your shirt. I wear it on a regular basis.
Oh, you're too kind, sir. You're too kind. I'm also going to give Trev a shout out here. When we're talking about the Canadian deliveries, I just today got a chance to watch, what'd you call it? Two Geeks Pick Up a Tesla, I think was the one with Jovanovic.
Yeah.
That is, the scene of you guys tearing around the parking lot testing it is hysterical. I mean, like, I've never heard Trev scream like a little girl. He does in this video. You have to look it up on the YouTube channel, Model 3 Owners Club. Two Geeks Pick Up a Tesla. If nothing else, watch Nick haul this thing through its paces, and like Trev is just pinned to the window. It's fantastic.
We had a good time. We had a good time. That was all tongue in cheek. We had a good time. All right, thanks for that. And lastly, but not least, Anise Sharifi, where can we find you on the internet if people want to chat with you, dear?
So I'm on Twitter at Annie_say, and then on Instagram at Anise Sharifi.
Yes, I see you're very active on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Love your pictures.
I like it.
love your pictures. All right. Well, that's it for this evening, folks. Thanks for joining us on the podcast. Again, we try and do this every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And as usual, we'll try and ask for questions before the podcast begins so that you can chime in with some of our owners. And lastly, I just want to mention one last time, if you're in the Greater Toronto area, and I hate to put a plug in all this time because, hey, after the fact, that's where I live. I don't live in California, but we are having a first Toronto area Model 3 gathering on Saturday, June, Saturday, June 16th at 8 p.m. at the Vaughan Mills Supercharger. We're expecting quite a few people, so if you want to come out and see some people, and maybe you haven't driven a Model 3, maybe one of the owners might oblige, who knows, because I know a lot of people out there are waiting to pull the trigger before they get a test drive, so it'd be your opportunity at least to see one in person if you haven't seen one. Anyhow, that's it, and you can also follow me on the Model 3 Owners Club. And my handle on Twitter is at Model 3 Owners. Anyways, that's it for tonight. And thanks, everybody, for joining us. And we'll catch you next week. See you later.
Donate to Patreon. Bye, everybody.